My name is Emily Elias, and I am with Eco Impact Solutions and the project manager for this project, and will be your facilitator or your moderator today. So thank you so much for being here. While you're joining, we hope that this is a really interactive session, so we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. So if you just want to introduce your organization, where you're calling in from today, and what you hope to learn today, what you hope we will touch on. And this will help the speakers to modify their remarks as they're going forward. So please introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know where you're calling in from and what you hope to learn. That will be great. And I will go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining. The goals for today are six. We hope to describe air quality monitoring in the region. So what's already happening, just give a broad overview and talk about why air quality matters, how it's measured, and how people can protect their health during times of poor air quality. We're going to share how Archuleta County Public Health Department made recommendations during a past wildfire event. So not that long ago, actually. So it'll be interesting to hear how they did that. We're going to, of course, describe this new air quality monitoring project that's in the region covering Archuleta County, La Plata County, and San Juan County. And then we want to learn about your perceptions of air quality, or your concerns about air quality, and also end with an offer to participate in this project. So just logistically, just to set the stage, if you're not named your name, please rename yourself. And you can do that by hovering over your photo and clicking the three dots up in the corner. So rename yourself if you're not named your name. We ask that you remain muted until we get to the end when we have the question and answer session. So at that point, you're welcome to unmute and ask questions. Please use the chat box at any time during the session to ask a question. We'll be moderating or monitoring those questions, and then we'll bring those up at the end. So I know sometimes a question comes up as you hear something. Ask the question right then. That won't be a problem. And then we'll get to them at the end during our Q&A session. This webinar is being recorded so that we can share it in the future. We ask, please, I know that it's lunchtime, so you might need to turn off your camera, but please be present, respect time and each other. Please be open and ask any questions that come up, because if you're thinking it, other people are also having that question. And then share the air, just meaning that let others have time to speak as well when we get to the Q&A session. So we're doing the welcome and goals for the day, and then we're going to move into an air quality project overview, a short overview of the project. Stephanie Burdett will give us that overview. Then we'll be talking more generally about air quality monitoring in Southern Colorado. Joanna Casey from Fort Lewis College will talk about that. And then we'll hear from Lacey Capri on linking wildfire with health recommendations and her experience of doing that. And then I will discuss how to get involved, so opportunities to get involved in the future. And then we'll have 10 minutes at the end for a question and answer session and evaluation. And I just wanted to introduce you to the team. So these are the folks working on this project. We'll be working on this project for the next 3 years. And so you can reach out to any of us if you're interested. So Stephanie is with San Juan Resource Conservation and Development. Lacey is with Archuleta County Public Health. Joanna is with Fort Lewis, and Lauren is our installation specialist, so handling all of the tech for us and installing the equipment, and she's with Fungal Solutions. And then I am the project manager. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and launch our first poll. So as I mentioned, we hope that this will be interactive, and we want to hear from you. So I'm going to launch our first poll now and give you a few seconds to answer these two questions. So what best describes your interest in today's information session? So what do you really want to know more about? And then how did you hear about the information session today? So please go ahead and enter your answers into the poll. And then at the end, I will share with everybody all of the answers from everybody who's replying. So we'll get an idea about what you want to hear about and about how you heard about this. So again, thank you for being here, and we're excited to share this new project. All right, I'll give it about, looks like most people have responded. I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to end the poll and we'll see, and I will share the results. So half of you have general interest, you want to learn a little bit more, and half of you have a professional interest. And I allowed this, that could seem confusing, I allowed multiple questions. So people also were interested in local concerns and had some other interests. And then no one saw it in the newspaper. That's good to know for the future. And if three people saw this on social media, and eight of you found out about it in a different way. So I'm very curious if you could enter into the chat how you learned about this webinar. That would be really helpful. I'm curious about that. And so with this, I will stop sharing the poll and turn it over to Stephanie, and she will be presenting on the project itself. So let me go ahead and share my screen again and turn it over to Stephanie.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking time to join us today. We really appreciate your interest and participation, and we are excited to share information about the EPA Ambient Air Monitoring Grant that has been awarded to San Juan Resource Conservation and Development Council, also known as San Juan RC&D. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting the conservation, improvement, and responsible use of both natural and community resources. Along with our partners at Archuleta Public Health and Fort Lewis College, we have worked for more than 3 years to secure this funding. We are proud to share that this effort resulted in a $307,000 grant that will support air quality monitoring across our region through June of 2028. This project will serve the communities in Archuleta, La Plata, and San Juan counties with a focus on areas located close to known or suspected sources of air pollution. Many residents in these areas may be at higher risk due to air quality and health impacts, and this project is designed to respond directly to those concerns. At its core, this project is about data, transparency, and action. We are investing in new air quality data collection where monitoring has not previously existed. We are committed to sharing that data openly with communities, agencies, and decision makers, and we will use the information we gather to better understand air quality challenges and identify practical solutions that can lead to healthier outcomes, not only during the project period, but well into the future. Early outreach and community input have already helped us identify several potential focus areas for engagement and monitoring. These areas often share common characteristics. Many have unpaved roads that generate dust and particulate pollution. Some rely on solid fuels, including coal, for home heating. Others are in narrow valleys near major highways or close to the region's historic railroads. These conditions can contribute to higher pollution levels, especially during certain weather patterns or seasons. To better understand air quality in these communities, we will deploy 5 semi-permanent modular sensors equipped with solar panels and Wi-Fi. These sensors will be placed in communities across Archuleta, La Plata, and San Juan counties and provide real-time data on fine particulate pollution and ozone, helping us identify patterns, trends, and potential problem areas. Importantly, the 5 sensor locations will not be decided in isolation. Community planning meetings like this one will play a key role in identifying areas of interest and ensuring that sensor placement meets quality assurance requirements. The placement of sensors will also be adaptive. Each year, locations may be adjusted based on data trends and community concerns, allowing us to respond to changing conditions and ensure that the benefits of this project are shared across the region. In addition to the semi-permanent sensors, we are offering a community checkout and mobile monitoring program. This program is designed to support individuals, neighborhoods, or organizations that may have specific air quality concerns but do not have a permanent sensor located nearby. For this effort, we are using Purple Air Flex sensors. These are portable sensors that measure fine particulate pollution known as PM 2.5 in real time. When connected to Wi-Fi, the data is displayed on the Purple Air real-time map, allowing users to easily see and track air quality conditions. These sensors can be checked out for a 2-week period with the option to renew depending on demand. Purple Air Flexors will be available for checkout at several locations, including the Archuleta Public Health Building, the Region 9 Economic Development District in La Plata County, and San Juan Public Health in San Juan County. This program allows residents to collect meaningful air quality data and better understand conditions in their immediate surroundings. For communities or organizations that request more detailed information, we are also offering access to volatile organic compounds or VOC sampling for qualifying requests. VOC sampling uses specialized stainless steel canisters to collect whole air samples. These samples can be collected quickly, known as a grab sample, or over a large period, allowing us to capture air quality conditions over hours or even days. This type of monitoring helps identify specific pollutants when more detailed analysis is needed. This grant became effective in July 2025, and we are in the final stages of getting our quality assurance project plan approved by the EPA. We anticipate this being approved before the end of this month. We will be able to start installing the 5 semi-permanent sensors in February or March, and the Purple Air checkout program should start in March as well. We will continue to engage the communities in the 3 counties to publicize this program and data collected in person and on our website at www.southwest SWCO Air, so southwestcoair.org. We will continue to monitor the sensors and provide analyzed data through June of 2028. This project represents a strong participation between San Juan RCND, public health agencies, academic institutions, and most importantly, the communities we serve. By working together, we can build a better understanding of local air quality, increase awareness, and support informed actions that protect public health.
Right. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And if you have any questions for Stephanie, again, please enter those questions into the chat box and we will turn to those at the end of the presentations. So please do use the chat freely and we will monitor. And now we'll turn it over to Dr. Joanna Casey at Fort Lewis College to give a broad overview of air quality in the region. Thanks, Joanna.
Get myself unmuted here. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to try to be brief and give some background and really some information about the measurements we're planning to make and how they will enhance measurements that are already happening in our region. We'll also share where the currently available data is available for you to find in real time. So just going back to, when did people first start to really understand that air pollution is a really serious problem for public health and can even be deadly? It was really in the mid 20th century. The London smog event is a really famous event, but similar events happened in the US and other parts of the world during this time when there was a lot of coal burning. And we can see in the figure on the right that, the morgue basically started filling up in London during this event. And deaths coincided pretty precisely with concentrations of particulate matter and sulfur dioxide from a lot of the coal emissions that were happening in the area, among others. And so in the US, the Air Pollution Control Act followed soon thereafter. and the Clean Air Act after that in the 60s and 70s with some amendments. And we've been able to improve our air quality dramatically through these programs and through the Clean Air Act. Part of the Clean Air Act defines National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or the NAAQS. And these are criteria pollutants that are monitored continuously at regulatory monitoring stations throughout the country. And we can see that the criteria pollutants are listed here on the left. Largely, we've seen huge improvements for all these parameters since the Clean Air Act came online, and we continue to see improvements. Two of the criteria pollutants that continue to be the biggest challenge are ozone and particulate matter, which is why those are a big focus of our project and of a lot of the monitoring that's ongoing in our country and around the world, really, as well. Even with these improvements, there are still health impacts that result from air pollution, absolutely around the world, and many in developing countries, with 7 to 8 million deaths annually due to air pollution. And in the United States, there's tens of thousands of adverse health outcomes that can be attributable by some researchers in the paper I have cited here to air pollution, just looking at data from regulatory monitoring stations around the country. So still very relevant, and there still can be improvements, and we can still take action to reduce our exposure. I'm just going to go over a very brief background of different types of air pollution and how they are relevant and how that can inform how we're measuring them. Air pollution can be in the gas phase, or it can be in the particle phase, droplets or solids, to form particulate matter. Air pollution can be emitted from a source directly, or there's actually a lot of atmospheric chemistry that can form secondary pollutants from precursors that are emitted in the air. And there can also be transport, and atmospheric mixing can have a big role in terms of how much the concentration can accumulate to be for a community or region. Particulate matter can be, droplets or solid matter pieces of air pollution, and some of them are small enough to be respirable. So any particulate matter that's below 10 microns in size, so pretty small, like smaller than a human hair, we can see in these blue circles, those are respirable, and so they start to induce some health impacts. And so PM10 is regulated as an EPA criteria pollutant. PM2.5 is as well. Those are smaller particles that are 2.5 microns in size. And those particles, since they're smaller, they can travel deeper into our lungs and cause more inflammation. And these have been connected to the most health impacts of any air pollutant around the world. Ozone is a gas phase pollutant that is not emitted from a source directly. It's something that forms in the atmosphere from precursors. It absolutely can impact human health. We see a relationship between asthma incidences and ozone concentration in the graph on the left. And it's basically a strong oxidizer, and so it can irritate our lungs in a similar way that it can damage the plant leaves that we see from the aspen, which tend to be a ozone-sensitive plant. And so that can also definitely cause some health impacts for folks, especially sensitive populations. Stephanie mentioned we also have some capacity to make some measurements of volatile organic compounds. This is a gas that contains carbon, and it's a compound that can be in gas phase in ambient conditions. And some of these can be naturally occurring, like anything that has a smell, like pine trees. If you're walking through the forest, those are volatile organic compounds and terpenes. Chemical cleaners that we might use around the house are VOCs. When we're filling up our gas tank, VOCs are emitted that are partitioning from liquid into the gas phase and can come into the air. Benzene is one example of a volatile organic compound that also is a hazardous air pollutant, which we'll talk more about. So one branch of air quality regulation under the Clean Air Act is the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, which we mentioned. There's also a group of hazardous air pollutants, or HAPs. These are also sometimes called air toxics. There's 187 of these pollutants. Most of them are in the gas phase. Some are different types of particles that can be, in particle phase, like heavy metals. They have been connected to cancer or birth defects or reproductive harm. And for these, unlike the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, where we have a threshold for a safe value over a certain time frame, there's no safe level for these compounds, but there's an acceptable risk that can be defined. For example, 1 in a million lifetime cancer risk is a threshold that can be established for a given compound, given its toxicity. We have some examples on the bottom here of different types of hazardous air pollutants that can be common. So compounds or pollutants toxicity is really important in terms of the health impacts or the risk that it can impose on people and sensitive populations. The concentration of that pollutant is relevant, as well as the duration of exposure. So these 3 things all come together to influence the health risk. I mentioned atmospheric mixing can play a big role in transport. So, we can have emissions, but then what the atmosphere is doing can influence how well that gets diluted and mixes away from the layer of the atmosphere where we're living and breathing. And so basically atmospheric mixing is governed by temperature gradients. And so we can see the structure of the atmosphere overall on this slide. And within the troposphere, the bottom layer, where we'll be our entire lives pretty much, in an airplane, you can get up toward the top of the troposphere, but usually not all the way into a stratosphere on a commercial aircraft. The bottom layer of the atmosphere can be further divided into a really low mixing layer called the planetary boundary layer. And this is where emissions from the ground generally mix into. And we can see in an area like Mexico City with some big mountainous terrain, as well as a significant amount of air pollution emissions, you can get a real accumulation and high concentrations of those pollutants. You can really see the clouds here kind of look like a lid, keeping the pollution trapped. That's exactly what the planetary boundary layer is doing, and it generally is as high as the clouds. And it's basically a temperature inversion type of situation that is trapping the air. So, we think about both emissions as well as atmospheric mixing when we're trying to interpret air quality data and understand how to improve air quality. And there's a bunch of different levels of tools that are available to us to measure what's in the air. My background with graduate school and my PhD and what I continue to work on with students is looking into new ways that we can measure air quality. And so I've worked on low-cost tools quite a bit and been thoughtful about their role, how we can characterize uncertainty, et cetera. I have kind of 3 different categories of air quality measurement tools here that I aim to compare and contrast for you. Regulatory monitoring is really high quality, robust data that can actually be used to determine if there's attainment of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards or for the criteria pollutants. These are really rigorously quality controlled. There's tons of data assurance. There's automatic calibration checks that happen every night. The Southern Ute Indian Tribe operates 3 regulatory monitoring stations, which I actually implemented this program for a year. And so I'm familiar with their program and the instruments there. And 3rd parties come in and do measurement audits. And so this is very robust data that's actionable. It's expensive, and their aim is to look at regional air quality in general. And they're usually not placed directly near a source, right? And so the role of mid-level air quality monitoring stations and low-cost sensors is essentially to improve the spatial coverage of measurements, to inform how is air quality on scales where we're actually living and in areas that are not exactly where these stations are located. And so we'll talk a little bit more about some of the examples of these tools and the data they're producing in our region. Stephanie also mentioned the grab samples that we have a little bit of funding to support with this grant. Basically, if we think that there's a concern and we have good reasoning, we could do a grab sample and send that off to a lab and have an EPA TO15 method analysis done to get a full characterization of VOCs in that sample of air. But our real-time continuous measurements will be mostly for particulate matter and ozone. So here's a list of the equipment that's in Southwest Colorado currently operating that's measuring air quality. I mentioned the 3 Southern Indian Tribe air quality monitoring stations in La Plata and Archuleta County. And the CDPHE is operating a particulate matter instrument in Pagosa Springs. We have a mid-level air quality monitoring station on the Fort Lewis College campus made by 2B Technologies called an AQ Sync. I have the X's color-coded by the level of quality of the measurement tool here. There's approximately 30 purple air sensors currently operating in our Tri-County region from what I could see on the map when I checked recently. And so we're going to be adding an additional 23 sensors to the purple air network through this project. A new version of the purple air sensors, in addition to measuring PM10, PM2.5, and PM1, they also have an experimental VOC sensor, which is a metal oxide type sensor. And the data need to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt as it's kind of in an experimental phase, but that is another thing that the new purple air sensors that we're buying will have. And only a couple of the existing purple air sensors within our area have that additional sensor. We're investing in 5 Quante-Q module air, kind of mid-level air quality monitoring stations that measure a number of compounds. And those are all the measurements that are planned in this project and currently operating in the region. We have someone joining us from the CDPHE today, and they have some plans to actually install a couple of regulatory instruments in Durango, which is exciting, in the coming year, hopefully. So, like I said, I've been thoughtful for many years now about, how can we make data from low-cost sensors, which are affordable and easy to deploy in a dense spatial network. How can we use that data, and what does it have the power to tell us? For this project, the tools that we're investing, we want to, measure air quality where it's not currently being measured, which is where many of our population centers are in the Tri-County area. We can hopefully get some better understanding about sources of pollution. We're supplementing the measurements that are already here. We're not, replacing any regulatory measurements that are already happening. The idea is to enhance what's already here. And we're excited to connect with the community to do some education and outreach to help inform people about how they can find data that's relevant to where they are and what actions they can take to reduce their exposure. Low-cost sensors, the data quality we have to be careful with, but performing audits and co-locations with regulatory instruments can help us both understand our data quality and improve our data quality as well. For each of the criteria pollutants, we can measure them in terms of their concentration, but then we can scale them in terms of their health impact. And so for particulate matter and for ozone, we can generate what's called an air quality index value. This is something that's directly actionable and color-coded in terms of the risk level. And I think Lacey will talk more about this in the context of particulate matter. You can see the link where you can see the real-time data from the Southern Ute Indian Tribe Ambient Monitoring Network. They have one station in Ignacio. They have one station in Bondad and one near Lake Capote to the west of Pagosa Springs. And so for all three of those stations, you can see real-time data that's coming from these robustly calibrated instruments. And you can see the concentrations are color-coded with the AQI here as well. Here's a snapshot of the CDPHE monitoring network. And so we can see there are some CDPHE monitoring sites in our region as well, or in particular, the monitoring station that's measuring particulate matter in Pagosa Springs. And so real-time data from that instrument is available at this link here. The AQ Sync that we're operating on the Fort Lewis College campus is also near an ozone garden that we've made, which is a garden where we have bioindicators for air pollution planted. And this data is also publicly available at lovemyair.com. So you can see all these parameters being measured in real time. Here's a snapshot of the Purple Air sensor network. We haven't added any of our additional sensors to this network yet, but we can see there's some areas where we could get some better spatial coverage, and we'll also have the checkout program. We're investing in 5 of these mid-level air quality monitoring stations built by QuantAQ. These really are using low-cost sensors, but this company has done some work to very carefully calibrate and quantify the signals in a unique way. They're working actually on patenting a method of combining kind of 2 lower-cost particulate matter sensors, those signals together to get a high-quality measurement that's better at measuring especially coarse particulate matter or the larger particles than those purple air sensors are. So that'll be really interesting. And we're measuring several gas phase pollutants with electrochemical sensors that they've integrated into their system. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I'd like to hand it over to Lacey next.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and great job. And thank you everybody for joining us. I'm glad that so many people are interested in air quality and what we're doing. So this first picture that we have is actually a picture of the Oak Fire incident that we had in Aspen Springs in August of 2025. It started in a population dense area, and as you can see from the movement of the smoke in this picture, the wind was moving pretty quickly, so things changed very fast in that situation. We had a few hundred residents that were called to evacuate in less than 6 hours from the start of the incident. So, in anticipation for wildfire season, we do advocate for a lot of preparedness because being proactive is practical. Wildfire smoke can change very quickly, and preparedness allows for faster, clearer guidance, and early actions reduce health impacts, especially for those in vulnerable populations. So when we prepare in advance, we can provide clear, consistent recommendations without delay. And early actions before smoke becomes severe are one of the most effective ways to reduce health impacts, especially for people at that higher risk. Okay. One of the ways that we help people prepare in Archuleta County is we provide free workshops for our community in anticipation of high-risk seasons like wildfire season. So we focus on practical, achievable steps, identifying clean indoor air spaces, and improving indoor air quality to significantly reduce exposure. We help people plan alternatives ahead of time to avoid last-minute decisions when smoke conditions worsen. And these workshops have been well received in our community. We usually see between 40 and 50 participants when we are able to provide them. This is a flyer from one of our workshops from last year. This year, our first workshop is planned for May 9th, and that flyer will go out once it's available. So even if you're not in Archuleta County, residents from neighboring counties are welcome to join us and learn more about what they can do to protect their air quality and be prepared for the emergency in other ways too. Okay. Another part of what we advocate for to help people be prepared in case of a wildfire event is to download the Watch Duty app. And this is a free app that is available in Google and iPhones on web browsers. So even if you don't have a smartphone, if you're somebody who tries to avoid that technology or if it's not available to you, you can actually use this on a public computer like at the library as well. And it gives lots of valuable information. You can see the air quality in your area. You can check wind direction. You can see up-to-date information on wildfires. So there's a lot of knowledge that is shared on that app. And we also encourage people to sign up for Nixle alerts, which you can do on the Archuleta County Public Health website, or you can just text your zip code to 888-777 to sign up for Nixle alerts in your area. I'm just gonna pop that in the chat in case I talk too fast for anybody. So when we are proactive, sorry, we are able to utilize the existing air quality index to create clear guidance that shifts by tiers. And the tiers are shown here between green and maroon. Green is good and maroon is hazardous for everybody. And Archuleta County Public Health has made several slides that correlate which each of these tiers so that we're prepared to make an air quality recommendation or action recommendation based on the levels that we're seeing during any event. Okay. And those recommendations correlate with the air quality index on which website was it? It's airnile.gov. So this is just a sampling of some of the recommendations we would make in different air quality levels. So in green, we encourage people to go outside, enjoy the sun, or stay inside and enjoy the shade. If we ever make it up to a maroon level of particulate matter, we encourage everybody to avoid all outdoor activities. And we also remind people on our recommendations that if they need masks to protect their airways during an air quality event, that we do have free N95s at Public Health at all times. So if you ever need one, come down and get one. You don't have to hunt one down. And the last part about being ready for an event is making sure you have a plan to return to normal. Because part of being prepared is knowing when to deactivate that preparation. So as air quality improves, we continue to inform our partners and the public of the air quality and associated recommendations until we return to our normal range, which in our area is usually under 50 PMI and in the green zone. And not knowing that when the danger has passed can be almost as stressful as being in danger itself. So reducing that stress and having reliable and verifiable information is considered part of our public health office responsibilities. So.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Lacey. And we have given you many different ways to be involved in terms of sharing a variety of opportunities and links that you can follow. So throughout the presentation, there are different places that you can go to get air quality information. And I also just want to say thanks to all of our speakers today, to Stephanie and Lacey and Joanna. Again, if you have any questions, please drop those in the chat at any time. And I am going to be talking about other ways you can get involved, specifically with our new project. And so one of those ways is we have an ongoing survey right now. That survey should take less than 5 minutes for you to fill out. I invite you to follow the link that Lauren just dropped in the chat or scan the QR code that's on the website and open it now and fill it out. It will really help us understand what you care about regarding air quality and help us really move forward in this 3-year project. So I invite you to please share your thoughts and your concerns. If because you joined, we know you're interested in this topic. And so please share your thoughts and share it with others as well. The survey closes March 31st. And so on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about our community checkout program. And so as was mentioned by Joanna and others, we're going to have a checkout program that offers purple air sensors to allow you to monitor air quality where you live or where you work or wherever you like. We will teach you how to use the monitor and help you to troubleshoot any challenges and also help you to download and analyze the data. The sensors or monitors can be checked out for 2 weeks at a time and renewed as available. We may need to rotate those around. We anticipate that there will be 5 sensors at any time in the 3 counties we serve. So they'll be available from offices in Silverton, the public health office there, in Pagosa, and in Durango. And our hope is to begin this program in March, sometime in March. So if you're interested, please let me know now. I can get you on a list and we can move forward with that. So my email is there and we can drop it in the chat as well. But we're really excited about this component of the project. And then there are other ways that you can participate. So because you signed up, you will automatically get infrequent, but hopefully packed with information, email updates. We'll provide some of the data summaries. We'll share information about upcoming events. And so those will be quarterly, typically, is our plan. We do plan for some in-person workshops and future webinars as well. And if you have a particular group that you're associated with or you're associated with a school, we would be happy to come in and share about the project, even talk a little bit about the sensors. So that's another opportunity. We just launched our website, so you should be able to get more information there. And we have 2 social media channels. You can follow us on Facebook. And so we have a link there for you to join our Facebook cohort. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, we have 2 different email addresses where you can reach out to Stephanie at sjrcd@hotmail.com, or you can reach out to me, Emily, at Eco Impact Solutions. So now we're going to turn over to the question time. I know you've been waiting patiently, and I have a few questions that people entered, so we can start with those. But also feel free to raise your hand or drop in the chat if you would like to verbalize a question. But some of the questions that came in, let me pull them up here. Okay, so one of the participants has asthma, and he's looking forward to learning how to improve air quality and how to measure air quality. And so I think that there are some indoor and outdoor opportunities, and I might turn this one over to Joanna to talk about potential ways to measure when you're concerned about your own personal health.
Yeah, I think, if you saw any sensors that were near where you live or work on some of the maps that I shared, leveraging instruments that are already operating would be a great way to start. The purple air sensors themselves are really pretty good. They correlate very well. Studies have shown they correlate very well with instruments called nephelometers that are a lot more expensive, and they measure PM 2.5 in a pretty informative way. And they cost about $200 or $300. So that's one type of sensor that I'd probably recommend investing in if you wanted something at your house, or even maybe inside your house. Actually, if it's not wildfire season, it's likely that the highest particulate matter concentrations we're exposed to are inside when we're cooking or heating our house. I actually have a purple air sensor in my house, and we definitely see whenever we're cooking. Even, we have a hood that vents outside, and that helps a lot. We can see that. Um, so yeah, I think for gas-based pollutants, I think finding data from a monitor that's closest to you would probably be the best way to go. Um, Low-cost sensors for measuring gas-based species are not quite at the same level as the purple air sensors for particulate matter. And so calibrating them can be more complex and more time intensive. And so I don't have a good off the shelf gas sensor that I'd recommend just right off the top of my head today to invest in for like an individual homeowner. Um, and actions that you can take, it's pretty hard to control outdoor pollution. So, basically understanding what the levels are and deciding how much time you want to spend outside and how much exertion you want to be undergoing at different times is probably the best way to reduce your outdoor air pollution exposure. If you're breathing really hard, exercising, you're really increasing your exposure. If you're just walking slowly to get from A to B, you'll have less exposure than if you go for a run. And different times of day, you can have really different levels of concentrations because of the atmospheric mixing that happens. Often at night, we'll have concentrations increase and accumulate because that boundary layer collapses down and the mixing volume gets really small. And often during the day, you can have concentrations decrease because your mixing volume gets bigger. But it's complicated because ozone is produced from sunlight, and so that actually goes up during the day. And so in the summertime, like in the Front Range, they often will post if it's a high ozone day and they'll recommend limited activity or less time outdoors on those days.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks for that response. Really helpful and interesting to analyze or think about the concentration changing because of that boundary layer changing. I wanted to say a thanks to Bagosa Weather and Coco Roz for sharing the webinar. A few people said that's how they heard about it. So I really appreciate you sharing the information. So thank you for that. There was a question about the slides. So yes, the slides and presentation will be posted on our website, hopefully within the next week. And I will also send an email to everyone who was registered, letting them know that those slides are available. Another question that people are interested in is where will the QuantiQ sensors be located? Right, where will those 5 sensors be? And we're still evaluating that. We're still figuring it out. But at this point, we know that one will be in Silverton and one will be in Pagosa. Initially, one was going to be co-located with another sensor on Fort Lewis College campus, but we may be reevaluating somewhere in the area up on the mesa for that sensor. And we're looking at the Durango Public Library or somewhere along the river trail for the 4th sensor. And the 5th, we're still evaluating locations. So if anyone has suggestions or interest, we do want to co-locate these near where people live. So that is part of this evaluation, but that is something that people are curious about and we're still working out, but we hope to have that in place within the next month or so. And then there's another question here. What is the evaluation method as to where to put the monitors? How are we deciding where to put the monitors? Excellent question. One of the criteria, as I just mentioned, was around where people live. There are other sensors that measure ambient air quality, so more broadly. And this program is designed to focus a bit more on where people live. And we certainly want to make it broadly accessible across the 3-county region that we're looking at. So another criteria is making sure that they're not all located in Durango, for example, and making sure that they're more widespread across Archuleta, San Juan, and La Plata counties. Does anybody else want to add anything in terms of how we evaluate the location of the 5 QuantiQ sensors? Okay, great. Thumbs up from Lauren. Okay, and Chuck, I see another question here. Thank you. What are the collection and response times for the take-home monitors? So if I smell smoke at night, like last night, will the monitors respond quickly enough for me to immediately check the air quality? And the answer is yes. So those purple air monitors are actually on a map, so everybody can see what you're measuring, but you will see immediately what you're measuring. Joanna, did you want to add more?
I agree with that. Yeah, I think they respond very quickly. By default, what they show on the online Purple Air map that visualizes the data is a 10-minute average. But you can actually go and edit what's shown and make it real time instead. And then you're getting, I think, a minute or two basically in terms of response time.
Excellent. And so as I mentioned, okay, another question for Joanna, but I will just mention that we plan to have at least 5 sensors available in Pagosa, 5 in Silverton, and 5 in Durango. And so do a 2-week rotating checkout of those sensors. So we're really excited about that. And then I know there's a question coming for Joanna. You can unmute and ask, or I can just read it. Okay, so how does fracking in oil and gas areas affect air quality? Um, would be would it be interesting to monitor residential areas next to fracking wells?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maggie. Nice to see you here. Yeah, my PhD was actually funded by this grant called Air, Water, Gas, and so I was part of a big collaboration to study oil and gas emissions, and I've thought a lot about that and done measurements in those areas quite a bit. Um, I think oil and gas production in general, we're producing hydrocarbons, and so mixed with those can be some hazardous air pollutants. So it's definitely something to think about. In Colorado, we have the San Juan Basin, um, but the portion of the San Juan Basin in Colorado is largely producing coal bed methane, which is good news for us because it's extremely light hydrocarbons, and that means less VOC emissions basically, and less hazardous air pollutants in an area like the Denver-Julesburg Basin up northeast of Denver. They produce more heavy hydrocarbons and condensate, and also in southern parts of the San Juan Basin and areas of New Mexico. So I think it'd be even more relevant in those areas than it is where we're getting coal bed methane. But yeah, I think, and methane itself is definitely a concern for things like climate change, right? It's really, really important. We can make a huge short-term impact on the radiative forcing of our planet by reducing our methane emissions. However, at the levels that we see methane in ambient areas around oil and gas production basins, methane itself is not directly harmful to human health. So it's more of a climate concern. Like the methane hotspot that was identified. I'm really familiar with the satellite measurements that saw a hotspot in the Four Corners area, and a lot of the field campaign that followed that I participated in actually. And part of the reason that we saw a hotspot for methane actually had a lot to do with the topography and the mountains in the region and the mixing of methane, where basically those emissions get trapped in the airshed for a little longer than they do in other similar basins with similar emissions.
Well, thank you so much. Those were great questions. I invite you to send any more questions you might have along. You can send them to me and I will be sure that they're answered. We're going to launch our next and our final poll. So let me see if I can get back to that poll and share it with you. Okay, so a few questions here in our final poll, 3 questions, to better understand what you might like to hear about in the future. So thank you so much to all of our presenters for being here and for sharing their knowledge and expertise. And thanks to all of you for being interested and joining. And we really want this to be an open, collaborative project where we can share more and talk more. So if you have any questions or anything comes up, we're open to hearing about those. So yeah, thank you for answering how you would describe your understanding of local air quality after our webinar. which would you like to learn more about in the future and kind of responding to that? And then what type topics, again, would you like to learn more about? And so thank you for answering those. Looks like we've gotten almost everybody has responded. We've gotten quite a few responses to those. So I'll go ahead and end the poll and I will share the results with everybody. So, so great. It seems like people, their knowledge is about the same to much stronger, somewhat stronger to much stronger. So thanks to our presenters for sharing their knowledge. In terms of interest, what people might want to learn more about, wildfire smoke, wood burning and home heating emissions, both of those seem to be of interest, along with indoor air quality. So I see that somebody put other. If you're willing, please drop the other topic you're interested in the chat. I'd like to be able to be responsive to that. And then, so in terms of topics going forward, understanding air quality data could be a topic of interest, the health impacts of air quality, how to use low-cost sensors, policy, and data interpretation. And those are pretty evenly split in terms of interest. So seems like we have a lot of future webinars and meetings to do, and we'll be happy to do that. So with that, I'll stop sharing. Thank everyone for joining. Thank you so much for being here for our first community information session. I will be sending you more information. Again, reach out if you have any further questions. And thanks to you for being here. And thanks to our presenters for speaking. And this concludes our community information session. Thank you so much.